All right, Adam. Well, this is the last day of media availability for Arizona week, and sounds like the Buffs had a pretty good week of practice coming off the bye week, and sounds like they're ready.
Yeah, one thing you worry about is a little rust. I mean, they had a lot of momentum, riding late in that Arizona State game, and you hate to see that not transition over after the bye week. But as we've talked about, they needed that bye week to get some guys healthy, and hopefully it's been long enough for Laviska Shenault to fix whatever was ailing him.
Yeah, well, we're going to see which guys are actually healthy. Now, both teams in this game dealing with some significant injuries. Laviska Shenault, Mustafa Johnson, we talked about it earlier, are game time decisions. Chris Miller sounds like he's going to be out for a little while. I don't expect to see him this week, and I don't know when we'll see him. But so they're down a good corner there for sure. Mustafa Johnson, we'll see. But the Buffs have got some injury issues, and we're going to see how that impacts them. But Arizona, they may not have Khalil Tate, may not have J.J. Taylor. They've got other guys that have stepped in and done well. But some of the big stars in this conference are supposed to be on the field here and may not.
Well, with J.J. Taylor for Arizona, if he goes, they've got three really talented backs. If he doesn't, they still have two really talented backs. And as Nate Landman pointed out, hey, we've struggled on the perimeter stopping the run, so we know that's how they're going to try to attack us. So no matter what, that's the biggest concern, whether or not Taylor goes. I still think Arizona is going to try to attack that, and they'll probably have some success. The CU defense, they've stepped up in big moments. They've gotten some big turnovers, but you're not going to see a consistency with this defense, I don't think, at any point this season. That's just my own expectations.
Yeah, we've seen this defense 4 weeks in a row. Every game they play better in the second half. You just hope they don't give up 24 points in the first half before they give up the 10 in the second. You got to try to limit Arizona to that 10 to 14 points in that first half. But defensively, it's going to be interesting for the Buffs if they don't have Mustafa. Obviously, won't have Chris Miller, but what do they have?
Yeah, and if Grant Gunnell is starting again, he looked really good for a true freshman last week against UCLA. I understand UCLA outside of that one quarter hasn't played very good football this year, but I was still impressed with him, and maybe we'll see KJ Trujillo, who saw his first action against Arizona State, continue to hear that Tariq Luckett's coming along, so might see some new guys there in the secondary for the Buffs.
So I agree with you that Grant Gunnell looked pretty good, but they also scored only 20 points at home, against a UCLA team that's not very good. I would take that if I'm the Buffs. If Grant Gunnell, throws for 350 yards and only puts 20 points on the board, I would guess CU's offense scores more than that. So what do you expect out of CU's offense out of this one? They had a pretty good performance at ASU. Have played well for most of the season, but what do you expect out of that offense?
It's tough because I don't quite know what to expect out of Arizona's defense. They were a turnstile defense for the first 2 weeks, and then they got a lot better against Texas Tech and UCLA. But Texas Tech and UCLA, again, with UCLA outside of one quarter, those aren't very good offenses.
Right.
So I don't quite know what to make out of them. I do expect that Colorado's going to score a lot of points in this game. And we know it starts up front with that offensive line. If they play like they did against Air Force, they're going to struggle. But if that unit can play anywhere close to what they did in the desert, I expect Colorado to have a big offensive game. It's kind of crazy. You look at Arizona and who they've played. We know how tough it is going out to Hawaii in a season opener, but Colorado's the best team they've played, and this is the 5th week of the season. There's not many times in recent history here covering this program you'd say that Colorado's the toughest team another team's played this deep into the season,
especially in the conference. And for Colorado, offensively, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Steven Montez, had some great protection, and that offensive line looked very good against Arizona State. And we made a lot about that the last couple of weeks, but you look back the last few years, the offensive line traditionally has a really good performance against the ASU.
Yeah,
it was 2016 that, remember, Philip Lindsay brings the offensive line into the press conference. It was 2018 last year against ASU that Steven Montez brings the offensive line in. So they seem to have ASU's number, I guess, in the trenches there. But then, it's up and down after that. So I think a key here is going to be how this offensive line takes that momentum, and if they can get some consistency there. They've had the same 5 guys, and I looked this up. First time in several years that CU's had the same starting 5 for the first 4 weeks of the season on the offensive line. So maybe that consistency is going to help them put together some performances back to back.
If they play well on Saturday, Colorado's winning this football game. I feel pretty confident in that. So they are definitely the key.
I agree with you. I think if they play well, I think Alex Fontenot, Jaron Mangum have big days, and when Steven's got a clean pocket, he puts up big numbers.
Yeah. Speaking of Laviska Shenault, what are your expectations there? I have a gut feeling he's going to play. Like you said, I don't think Chris Miller is going to play. Mustafa Johnson, I think, could go either way. But part of me would be surprised if Laviska's not out there on Saturday.
I think Laviska, I think when we get to warm-ups, I think we're going to see Laviska, and you and I will be tweeting, oh, Laviska's going through warm-ups. I don't know if he'll actually play. I don't know how close he is, but my guess is that for sure he'll be in uniform and going through some warm-ups. My guess is, Mustafa Johnson's got an ankle sprain, and those things, especially for a defensive lineman, pushes off of that ankle a lot. I don't know if he's going to be able to play or not. But if I had to guess, I'd lean more towards seeing Laviska than I would seeing Mustafa Johnson. But I think that there's a chance we don't see any of them really.
But even if Laviska can't go, apparently Tony Brown's a star now. It's pretty incredible, his emergence here this season. And Dimitri Stanley, he doesn't have a ton of catches, but the catches he's had have been really important, and a lot of them pretty impressive and tight. And a lot of traffic around him with some of those catches. I've been impressed with him. I think he's a guy, as the season goes along and he continues to make catches, is going to gain confidence and be a bigger playmaker for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Katie Nixon is having another good season as well, on pace for about the same number of catches and more yards than last year. And I don't know what it is about him, but I don't know if because he's so outgoing, if we expect more, but he's just quietly putting up big numbers. I don't feel like he's looked at as a big star. You know what I mean? I feel like he kind of quietly, he had 98 yards receiving against ASU, and maybe it's because there's always somebody when he has a big game that seems to have a bigger one. He has 98 yards. That's great. Tony Brown caught 3 touchdowns, so great job.
Well, the fumble too. I think then you kind of look at the negative side and the penalty as well. But he said that he's not going to do that again. So he could have another big game as well.
Yeah. So anything else you want to get to before predictions?
I think I'm ready to dive into it.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So we both think the Buffs are going to score a lot of points. I'm going to have you go first. What's your prediction?
Well, again, I don't think you take too much from Arizona having good defensive performances against Texas Tech and UCLA. I think Colorado's going to score a lot of points. You look at just the history since Colorado joined the Pac-12. Seemingly every game between these two teams turns into a shootout. I expect Colorado to be in a shootout against most teams, so I'm certainly not going to go away from that in this game. I'm going to say Colorado wins this game 41-34. I think a lot of points.
All right. I'm along the same lines, and what we've seen the last 3 weeks, I've got to kind of predict a close game that goes down to the wire that I don't want anymore. I'd like something where I can write a game story in the fourth quarter. But I think the same thing. I'm going to go a little lower than you just to be different. But I think the Buffs 38, and I'll go Arizona 31.
And it's a big game. We've talked about it. Colorado's got a tough stretch coming up. You start to look at that schedule, and at home against Stanford, that looks more winnable than it did. Even at home against USC, looks a little bit more winnable than it did. Maybe even Washington State a little bit more so. There's going to be some games that they're going to have a chance to win, obviously at UCLA, but you're 3-1 right now. You got to continue to ride this momentum before the schedule gets a little tougher.
Yeah, we'll get into it more in a couple of weeks, but one interesting note on Washington State, they've obviously lost 2 in a row, looked awful against Utah. They've got to bye this week, and then they go to Arizona State. Could that team be riding a 3-game losing streak when the Buffs come in? So that'll be something to pay attention to, which I never would have thought would happen, but that would make that game a little more different. So, but I agree with you. Right now, this game looks huge. If they want to go to a bowl game, I think they got to get this one.
Yep, I agree.
We'll be back after the game to talk about it.